Галина ходила взад и вперед по квартире, не находя себе места. Уже который день подряд Дима приходил домой поздно, а вчера вообще под утро пришел. Выговорила ему, что мог бы предупредить, позвонить, чтобы она не волновалась. Поссорились. И вот снова ждет, меряет шагами комнату, смотрит на часы постоянно. Любовь у него, но мог бы позвонить. Рано или поздно женится, нужно привыкать. Еще неизвестно, какая жена достанется. Переживаний только прибавится. Ой, лучше бы об этом не думать. Он, конечно, взрослый, но душа все равно болит. Галина никак не могла перестать накручивать себя. Раньше смеялась над такими матерями, которые слишком опекают своих взрослых сыновей, а теперь стала сама не лучше их. Всех девушек, с которыми встречался сын, если ее знакомил, она считала недостойными его. И, как все матери, думала, что сын должен с ней посоветоваться в таком важном деле, как выбор невесты. Уж она-то лучше знает, что ему нужно. Мысли лезли и лезли в голову, и конца им не было. Скорей бы уж сын домой пришел. У двери щелкнул замок, и Галина вздрогнула, хотя ждала и прислушивалась. Наконец-то! Бросилась в прихожую, но на полдороги остановилась, ушла в кухню и села за стол, сложив перед собой руки. «Мам, ты чего не спишь?» Дима встал в дверях. «Ну ты же знаешь, что я переживаю. Мог бы позвонить!» С упреком сказала она. «Мам, я взрослый, и я не собираюсь отчитываться за каждый свой шаг перед тобой. А где ты был?» Галина смотрела с вызовом. «С Соней». Голос Димы при этом стал нежным и на тон ниже. «У тебя очередная знакомая, и я думаю, не последняя. А мама у тебя одна!» Галина не могла скрыть ревности. «Почему очередная? Она единственная, как и ты, мама». Дима подошел, наклонился и поцеловал Галину в щеку. «И не надо говорить о ней плохо. Поругаемся. Сама же потом будешь жалеть. И потом, как бы я выбрал себе невесту, если бы не знакомился с девушками? Сама же говорила, что нельзя жениться на первой встречной. Говорила?» «Говорила», подтвердила Галина. «Я так понимаю, что ты уже выбрал невесту». Дима сел на корточки перед Галиной и заглянул ей в лицо. Сердце Галины затопило нежность. Как же он похож на своего отца. Тот же взгляд, та же улыбка. «Выбрал, мама». Дима покаянно уткнулся головой в ее колени. «Так познакомил бы меня с ней», — уже миролюбиво сказала Галина. «Обязательно. Только...» — Дима поднял голову. «Что? С ней что-то не так?» Галина хотела спросить, уж не собирается ли он привезти в дом какую-то бродяжку, как в детстве подбирал на улице и тащил домой котят и щенков. Жалость к животным – хорошее качество. Но всех не пригреешь и не накормишь. Тогда она притворялась, что у нее аллергия, и начинала чихать. Дима уносил найденных щенков и куда-то их пристраивал, на улице не бросал. Теперь так не притворишься, не прокатит. Слова были уже готовы сорваться с языка, но она увидела предостерегающий взгляд сына и промолчала. «С ней все в порядке, мам. Она красивая, хорошо готовит. Мне, во всяком случае, нравится. Но она не одна». «Ты влюбился в замужнюю?» Наверное, на ее лице отразился страх, потому что Дима тут же сказал: «Нет, конечно, но у нее есть сын. Ему 5 лет». «5?» — воскликнула Галина. «Сколько же ей лет?» «Мама, не кричи. Да, она старше меня». «Понятно». Галина чуть не задохнулась от гнева. Ее сынок, солнышко, которого она безумно любила, ради которого могла горы свернуть и жизнь отдать, влюбился в женщину старше себя, да еще и с ребенком. «Что тебе понятно, мам? Я люблю ее. Человек имеет право на ошибку. Ты же сама так говорила». «Да, только такая ошибка на всю жизнь, и ее не исправишь. А свободные молодые девушки тебя уже не привлекают?» Зло выкрикнула Галина. «Вот поэтому я и не говорил, и не приводил ее знакомиться с тобой». Дима вскочил на ноги. «Знал, что ты не поймешь меня. А помнишь, ты рассказывала про девушку у вас на работе, которую бросили с маленьким ребенком? Как же ты ее жалела? Ты говорила, что все при ней, и что обязательно она встретится с хорошим человеком. Он станет отцом ее дочки. Почему этим хорошим человеком должен быть кто-то другой, а не твой сын?» «Сынок, любовь приходит и уходит. Я тоже отца твоего безумно любила, А он нас с тобой оставил и ушел к другой. Вот именно, мама! Не факт, что со свободной и молодой у нас сложится на всю жизнь. А Соню я люблю. И ее сына. Он замечательный мальчишка. Ты бы его видела. Даже если ты будешь против, я не брошу ее. Поняла? Давай остановимся на этом. Дима, я растила тебя и мечтала, что ты будешь счастлив. Все, хватит. Это моя жизнь, мама. Если ты будешь вмешиваться в нее, я уйду. Дима развернулся и ушел в свою комнату. Сынок! Утром он ушел на работу, даже не стал завтракать. Они не разговаривали. Дима возвращался домой поздно, сразу уходил в свою комнату. Галина не знала, что делать, как наладить разладившиеся отношения с сыном. Кажется, совсем недавно она качала его на руках, пела колыбельные, лечила разбитые коленки, а сегодня у него взрослая жизнь. И не так просто принять это. «Дима, давай поговорим», – начала она как-то. «Поговорим, когда ты будешь готова услышать меня и понять». Видно, в самом деле он любит ее. «Смотри, уйдет к ней, и потеряешь ты сына навсегда, Галина», – выговаривала ей Петровна, самая старшая из женщин на работе. Галина не смогла долго таить в себе боль от размолвки с сыном. Поделилась ей в обеденный перерыв. Хотелось участия, совета, просто высказаться. Знаю, что не права, но не могла остановиться. Занесло меня, наговорила ему. Чуть не плача, рассказывала Галина. А ты хотела, чтобы он всю жизнь был возле тебя? А о чем говорить-то с тобой? Ему важна твоя поддержка, понимание. А ты не можешь этого дать и смириться с его выбором. Тебя саму-то сразу твоя свекровь приняла? Не сразу, но я была моложе мужа и без ребенка. Галина всхлипнула. И она все равно находила в тебе недостатки. Матери так устроены, ревнуют сыновей, никогда не одобряют их выбор. Только одни матери смиряются и налаживают отношения с невесткой, а другие объявляют непримиримую борьбу. Ничего хорошего из этого не выйдет. Вот ты без ребенка замуж вышла, а растила его все равно одна. Дима мне тоже так сказал. Вот и смирись, пока он не женился. Тоже поди переживает. Ждет, что ты мудрость проявишь и материнскую любовь и снисхождение. Сходи, познакомься с этой Соней. Посмотри, что она за жар-птица такая. И не реви, сердцу ведь не прикажешь. Галина понемногу начала успокаиваться. 3-ю неделю они с сыном живут как чужие. Так не может больше продолжаться. И Галина решила сходить к Соне. Поговорить, попросить отпустить Диму от себя. Настроилась решительно. Адрес узнала у соседа, друга Димы. По вторникам и пятницам Дима после работы ходил в спортзал. Часа 1,5 у нее есть. Но с пустыми руками неприлично идти. Это будет выглядеть слишком воинственно. Торт купить. С тортом мириться приходят, а у нее другая задача. А вот с игрушкой прийти – это знак внимания, но к ребенку, а не к его матери. Ребенок же ни в чем не виноват. Галина зашла в магазин и так увлеклась, выбирая игрушку, что незаметно для себя распределила. Вот эту машинку куплю сегодня, а вот ту в следующий раз. Хотя какой следующий раз? Ну, вряд ли он будет. Галина решительно нажала на кнопку звонка. Дверь открыла симпатичная молодая женщина. Вслед за ней в прихожую вбежал улыбающийся мальчик. Увидел незнакомую тетю, и удивление сменило улыбку на его милом симпатичном личике. «Здравствуйте, я мама Димы», – сказала Галина. «Я поняла, проходите. Сережа, иди в комнату». Соня подтолкнула сына, и он нехотя ушел. Галина сняла туфли и надела большие мужские тапки, принадлежавшие, по-видимому, Диме. Она прошла в комнату и огляделась. Уютно, чисто, хорошо. «А меня Сережа зовут. Смотри, какой у меня самолет. У него даже звук, как у работающего мотора, когда пропеллер крутится». Сережа показал свой самолетик и продемонстрировал, как он гудит. «Здорово. А я тебе тоже кое-что принесла. Смотри». И Галина достала из сумки небольшую коробку. Глаза Сережи тут же загорелись неподдельной радостью. Следующие минут 15 они осматривали машинку и пробовали ее возможности. «Смотри, двери открываются». Сережа пару раз провел колесами по полу, и машинка резво поехала через всю комнату. «Нравится?» – спросила Галина. «Конечно, очень! А как ты узнала, что я такую хотел? Догадалась. У меня ведь тоже сын есть. Правда, взрослый уже. Галина совершенно забыла, зачем пришла. Она замечала, что Соня заходила в комнату и смотрела на них, слушала, а потом уходила на кухню. Наверное, готовила ужин. Галина спохватилась только тогда, когда вот-вот должен был прийти Дима. А где же еще он пропадал каждый вечер, как не здесь? «Мне пора», — сказала Галина и взяла сумку. «А Диму не подождете? Он скоро придет». Соня стояла, прижавшись плечом к косяку. «Ты еще придешь?» — с надеждой спросил Сережа. «Приду». Галина вдруг поняла, что говорит правду. Всю дорогу до дома она вспоминала радостные глаза Сережи. Как он сразу перешел на «ты», приняв ее за свою. В сердце разлилась теплота и нежность. Ей понравилось, что Соня ни о чем ее не спросила, не вмешивалась в общение с Сережей, предоставив им возможность самим найти общий язык. Она вошла в свою квартиру и огляделась. Представила, что однажды Дима не вернется домой. Она останется тут совершенно одна. Ощутила безмерную тоску и заплакала. Наутро рассказала Петровне, как сходила на разборку к Соне. Как ей хотелось обнять Сережу, вдохнуть сладковатый детский запах, такой привлекательный и манящий для любой женщины и матери. А потом позвонил Дима. И как ни в чем не бывало, сказал, что у них с Соней сегодня небольшой праздник. Что Соня испекла пирог и приглашает ее в гости. Что он будет ждать ее там. Знал, конечно, что она приходила, но на всякий случай назвал адрес. Галина зашла в магазин после работы. Пирог пирогом, а без подарка не принято ходить в гости. И она купила машинку Сереже, которую выбрала вчера, и 4 чашки из разноцветного стекла. «Спасибо, мам!» Дима поцеловал Галину, как раньше. Помог снять плащ. 4 чашки? Я подумала, что вас 3, и одна для меня, когда я буду приходить к вам в гости», – смутилась Галина. Соня ободряюще улыбнулась. «Только скоро понадобится 5, мам. Я ждал тебя, чтобы сделать Соне предложение». Сережа достал из кармана красную бархатную коробочку и протянул Соне. «Ты выйдешь за меня?» «Как?» – ахнула Галина. Вы ждете ребенка?» «Не сейчас, но потом же обязательно. Девочку». Дима хитро улыбнулся Соне и обнял Галину. «Ты же мечтала стать бабушкой?» «Ты моя бабушка?» Лицо Сережи выражало одновременно радость и удивление. Мы все непростые люди, со своими привычками, воспитанием, образованием, происхождением, уровнем культуры, со своими вкусами, пристрастиями, здоровьем и наличием тараканов в головах. Гражданки свекрови и гражданки невестки, уважайте друг друга, если уж не смогли полюбить. Ведь все мы, если не свекрови, то непременно невестки. Один мудрец сказал: «Пока мы недовольны жизнью, она, как известно, проходит». А еще насмехается над тобой, добавляю я.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.